Good morning and welcome to MEC's Capital Day. I'm Scott Waller, President and CEO of the Mississippi Economic Council, the State Chamber of Commerce. We're very happy that you're joining us for MEC's first ever virtual Capital Day, and we're coming to you from room 216 here at the Mississippi State Capitol. Now normally this room would be completely full with people even standing room only on the back walls and folks out in the hallway listening to legislative leaders talk about what's ahead for this coming session. Well, this year things aren't normal, and as a result of that we're going to have to bring you a virtual Capital Day, and you'll still hear from our legislative leaders, and we'll be talking about a lot of the priorities that are taking place. But one thing's for sure, COVID hasn't changed the way MEC focuses on making Mississippi more competitive. And that's one of the reasons that this is such an important event, because our state legislature plays such a major role in that. So today, as we hear from leaders, they'll talk about what their priorities are. We're going to talk about transportation, we're going to talk about education, we're going to talk about a variety of things from economic development and on. But at the end of the day, where we will be is we will have a better understanding of what's ahead for us in this legislative session. Now, there's also a very special panel that's going to be part of today's Capital Day, and it's going to look at the state flag and the process that it took to get it done. We've talked to several leaders that were involved deeply in that and kind of gotten their feedback and input on what's going to take place, what took place, and what's going to take place in the years to come. You know, changing the flag is going to make a major difference for us, and it's going to have such a positive impact on our state, not only from an image standpoint, but from an economic standpoint. And I'm happy to say that this was something the legislature didn't waste their time on making official. In fact, on Tuesday, they brought up House Bill 1, which was to officially put the new design into the statute, making it our new state flag. So again, we're really excited about the opportunities that this is going to give us. Now, MEC is really an organization that would not exist without the support of our members, the support of our sponsors for events like Capital Day, and the support of our volunteer leadership from across the state. This year, our chairman is Anthony Wilson. Anthony is president and CEO of Mississippi Power. Anthony has worked very hard in his role since becoming chair of making sure that MEC is prepared and stable to be able to give our members the information necessary to help them not only get through the COVID-19 pandemic, but to continue to make sure that we're getting information to our members about priorities that are extremely important to us. Anthony, again, we appreciate all the work that you have done, and we think that this is something that is so important to have a chair that is so active in making sure that MEC is focused on the things that matter the most. Anthony has a short video welcome for you as well, and at this time I would like to introduce Anthony Wilson.
Good morning. I'm Anthony Wilson, President and CEO of Mississippi Power and Chair of Mississippi's Economic Council. And on behalf of our board, we appreciate you joining us today for MEC's virtual Capital Day. This is our largest legislative event each year and one of the most meaningful events on our calendar. Although we can't be together in person this year in the interest of everyone's health and safety, I know today's program will provide important information concerning MEC's priority issues such as workforce development, business climate, education, and transportation. As our state's voice of business, MEC leads the private sector's essential role in the legislative process. Through our valued partnerships with state leaders, we advocate for issues that impact Mississippi's growing economic opportunities. Your voice was never more evident than during last year's legislative session, when MEC's leaders played a vital role in addressing what I believe to be one of the most essential issues in our lifetime: changing our state flag. We championed the new In God We Trust design that was overwhelmingly supported by 72% of our Mississippi voters in the November 3rd general election. The legislature soon will take the final step, maybe even today, of officially adopting the design as Mississippi's state flag, one that will unite all of us and help us realize our full potential. We appreciate our legislative leadership for taking these bold and historic steps. And as we move into the new year, MEC will continue to focus on critical issues like developing a skilled workforce for today's economy, which remains our top priority. To grow our state's economy and raise per capita income, we must bolster career and technical opportunities and to keep and attract the very best and brightest of Mississippi talent. MEC's long-term strategic goal is simple: to move Mississippi forward. Thank you for your commitment and support of this important mission. And thank you again for being with us today for MEC's first ever Virtual Capital Day. It's going to be a great day.
When you choose natural gas, showers stay hotter for longer, towels get fluffier, bank accounts tend to put on some weight, and our blue planet gets a little greener. Atmos Energy, your natural gas company.
We appreciate the hard work of our elected leaders in moving Mississippi forward. We work in partnership with them to help achieve that goal. And when storms strike, our employees work tirelessly to restore power. We are the Electric Cooperatives of Mississippi.
Good morning and welcome to MEC's 2021 Capital Day. Education is a cornerstone for moving our state forward. To have the skilled workforce for the jobs of the future, we must remain focused on providing the best education possible. Senate Education Chair Dennis DeBar understands this. Senator DeBar represents George, Greene, and Wayne County respectively. Please help me welcome Chairman DeBar.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I appreciate the invitation and opportunity to speak to you today. Well, going into the 21 session, we're hoping that it'll be a shorter session. We did some great things in the 2020 session, and looking forward to doing some more in the 21 session. The first thing we're looking at doing, as always, is helping our teachers and teacher assistants. Last year, we passed unanimously in the Senate a teacher pay raise of $1,000, as well as helping our teacher assistants by raising their pay as well. This bill will allow for the starting pay for a teacher to be $37,000, so their raise will be just above $1,000, but every other teacher will receive a $1,000 pay raise. This will be the first of many pay raises that we can hopefully see in the next, during this term. If we pass this one, then next year, and then the next year after that, we'll also look forward to a pay raise. The caveat to all of this is the revenue. As of right now, our revenue is up above projections. Going into January and February and March, we're hoping that will stay the same, but as anything, the teacher pay raise will be dependent upon the revenue, and hopefully we can make that happen this year. I know it's a big priority, not only for myself and the Senate, but Lieutenant Governor Hosemann as well. The other big topic facing our schools and our school districts across the state is the fact that our enrollment is down significantly. A recent report came out that says we have 23,000 children or students that are unaccounted for. That means they've not enrolled, or they're being homeschooled, or basically we're not sure where they're at this point. This will dramatically affect the funding for our school districts. MAEP is based upon, in part, by our average daily attendance, and so we are looking at passing legislation to allow districts to be held harmless for the ADA, or average daily attendance. This will allow them to be funded at their 2019 and 2020 levels versus facing a reduction in their MAEP funding. These two bills, the pay raise and the ADA hold harmless, are two of the top main priorities in our education committee in the Senate this year. If we can get those two done, that would be a significant factor in maintaining or improving our educational system. We need the pay raise for our teachers, not only to raise the pay, but to help bring more teachers into our educational system. We have a critical teacher shortage throughout our state, and one of the ways we can improve that is by helping revise and reform our loan programs and repayment programs. My Vice Chairman, Senator David Blunt, has been working diligently since our session ended in October to revise that. I believe the Office of State Financial Aid has bought off on a plan to consolidate many of the financial aid loan programs for our teachers, and that will significantly increase the opportunity for teachers to obtain loan repayments and grants and bonuses that they will critically need. Another main issue that will be coming up is dual enrollment. Senator Rita Parks in the Universities and Colleges Committee has been working with the Education Committee to bring about dual enrollment for 11th and 12th graders so they can achieve a diploma or some college credits or even a certificate such as in welding upon graduation. The process now is convoluted of sorts, and so hopefully we can kind of revise that system and make it a smoother opportunity, an easier opportunity for our students to obtain college credits or a certificate while in school. During the off session in November, the Education Committee had a hearing on year-round schools. We had Dr. Childress and the department come speak to our committee. We are looking at opportunities to remove barriers for this year-round or modified calendar coming up this next session. The year-round or modified calendar system allows for prevention of the, excuse me, it helps at-risk students maintain or become more proficient in their educational studies, as well as reduces the summer slide that happens over the 3 months of summer. So we want to help encourage districts to remove barriers the districts may have in changing to this modified calendar. The other issue that could be addressed this session is computer science. I was at a meeting at Mississippi State visiting with a research and curriculum unit a few months ago, and they'd said that there are about 40,000 computer science jobs available in our state, and that number is only growing. And so we want to help increase the awareness for students to enter into this career field, coding, other programming, things of that nature, to allow for students to become job ready as they leave high school. So those are some of the keys and points of emphasis we will be looking at during the 21 session. Of course, many issues may come up that we're not aware of at this point, but this is what we're focused on now, and hopefully we'll have a smooth session and everybody will be safe and healthy. Thank you.
A strong workforce is vital for Mississippi's economy and must be built with a strong educational foundation. Our next speaker, Representative Richard Bennett, consistently focuses on ways to improve our state's educational system. He continues to work with MEC on funding to assess our high school students' work readiness. We appreciate his dedication and know he is working to provide opportunities for success in the classroom. He represents Harrison County. Please welcome Chairman Bennett.
It's that time of the year again. The legislative session has begun. Welcome to your capital virtually. I'm Richard Bennett, Chairman of Education and an advocate for public education. The legislature appreciates the impressive efforts of the Mississippi Economic Council and its pursuits to stimulate and create economic growth during this pandemic. The legislature and the MEC understand that our economic strength lies in supporting and strengthening our education system. Since being elected to the House, I've worked to create policy that improves our students' graduation rates, aptitude for language arts and math. The importance of preparing Mississippi students to compete on a local and regional and national level is paramount for our economic growth. The legislature has made great strides over the past few years to ensure our children's success academic futures locally, regional, and nationally. My passion for public education existed long before I was appointed chairman of the House of Education Committee. I was born and raised in a family of educators. I was on the local school board for many years. My mother was a teacher. My father was superintendent of education. My sister has taught for over 45 years. I have another sister who sits on a local school board. And my son is a principal at the local high school. As evidence of the legislature's commitment, let me give you some facts. Our education budget accounts for about a third of the entire budget. We allocated $2.5 billion during the year of 2020. This number excludes spending for our junior colleges and our IHL. Each year that number has grown and will continue to grow. Due to this support, our schools are now receiving national recognition. Quality Counts named Mississippi one of top 5 most improved states. The National Institute of Early Education Research named Mississippi only one of 4 states meeting all 10 quality standards for pre-K. 4 more Mississippi schools received National Blue Ribbon honors this year from the United States Department of Education. Also, now we understand that early learning collaboratives work for our students. We will continue to increase funding. Our 3rd grade students continue to maintain 85.6% passage on their first attempts of reading assessments. To elaborate a little bit on that, when we passed that, it was controversial because a lot of people thought that our 3rd grade students would be held back from advancing to the 4th grade. And we had principals, teachers, educators that questioned this. We had a lot of legislators that questioned it. But we went ahead and implemented it. We took bold steps. And now I think that this has been a game changer for Mississippi. All of our kids are able to read before they move on to the 4th grade. The National Assessment of Educational Progress, that's the nation's report card, continues to highly rank our state's improvement in reading and math scores. Mississippi ranks #1 in the nation for 4th grade score gains in reading and mathematics. For the first time, Mississippi 4th graders scored higher than the nation's public school average in mathematics and tied the nation in reading. Mississippi is the only state in the nation to show significant increases in 3 of the 4 core NAEP subjects. The percentage of Mississippi students scoring proficient or above on NAEP has increased significantly over the past decade, particularly 4th grade mathematics, where proficiency levels nearly double. They went from 22% from 39%. They sound like just statistics, but let me tell you, this is great news for the state of Mississippi. We have people coming in, states coming in from all over the United States, wanting to talk to us, wanting to know what Mississippi is doing, how are we moving this fast. Whoever would have dreamed that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that people would have been looking for Mississippi and how to better their education department and their programs in their states. It just shows how far we have come in the state of Mississippi. And it's so important for our economic growth and for the quality of life for our residents and our students. Graduation rates remain at an all-time high of 85%, exceeding the 2019 national average of 84.6. At the same time, the state's dropout rate fell to a historic low of 9.7%, a decrease from 13.9% in 2014. This is huge. This is transformational for these students and these people in their lives for a better life. The improvement in these two categories are extremely important and is making a difference in Mississippi. I was excited to see that the Mississippi Board of Education began looking at putting the ACT work keys into the state's accountability standards. These assessments is extremely important to help determine students' work readiness. I think, again, this will move the state forward. I'd like to thank Speaker Philip Gunn, Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann for their dedication to the students and educators in our state. They have consistently supported the state policies that support and strengthen and promote public education. Last but not least, many thanks to the MEC and Scott Waller for working to boost our economy during this pandemic. Your work helps the legislature provide the needed funding and support to the students and teachers of our state. The legislature appreciates your commitment to better our future. Again, I appreciate and thank MEC for allowing me to speak with you today. Thank you.
Mississippi Power uses the most advanced technologies to offer energy solutions that make our customers' lives easier every day. We're partnering with Southern Company to build the first ever smart neighborhood, fully powered by state-of-the-art solar shingles. The homes will also feature battery storage, electric vehicle chargers, and smart home automation. At Mississippi Power, we shine a light on our communities.
My name is Kathy Northington. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Mississippi Economic Council, and I want to welcome you personally to our first ever virtual Capitol Day. I have some great guests with me here today, and we're excited to talk about an historical moment that hit the state of Mississippi in 2020 last year. And they're just going to tell us about the process, how we got to that point, to where we are now, the final flight of the In God We Trust flag, and what's next? What are we going to do to keep that momentum? I have with me Brent Galloway. Brent is from Columbus, Mississippi, and we're happy to have Brent here today. Brent is a board member from Mississippi Economic Council, and he's also a Leadership Mississippi alum. So they say MEC is nonpartisan, but I think for me today, I have some leadership alums on the panel, and so I think I'm going to be a little partisan today. So thanks for being here today, Brent, and we're excited to hear what you have to say. We have a good friend of mine, Representative Christopher Bell. We talked to Christopher Bell, and Chris said, how long have you been a representative? And he's like, I've been a representative all my life. So we can hear what he has to say and the process and what he did to make it happen and how he got it going at the Capitol and the giants that went before him to help him push this through. Right here next to me, I have Sherry Bevis. Once again, we're talking about partisan. And so Sherry Bevis is a Leadership Mississippi alum, and one of my favorites, I must add. When I met her, she was at the Secretary of State's office. Now she is with Singing River. And so that is a great addition to that organization and that hospital, and they are blessed to have her. And I have with us Judge Ruben Anderson. And if any of you know Judge, you're going to learn a lot about him today, and you're going to learn that to get him on a panel in an interview, we are all honored to have that. And so we're excited to be here in 2021. Hope everyone had a great Christmas and end of the year, and we're ready to bring 2021 in an amazing way. So Brent, we're going to go back. Before we go to you, we're going to talk about the flag, the Mississippi flag. And before we get started, we must, talk about Henry Kirksey and Aaron Henry and the work that they did. So many people talked about Kirksey and how he did not bite his tongue. He said what he wanted to say to his friends, to his foes. He didn't care if it was on his mind, he was going to say it. A lot of people know him from districting lines at the state capitol. One of the first legislators, black legislators, African American legislators at the Capitol. And then Aaron Henry and how he pushed to, file a lawsuit to get this flag changed years ago. I want to say the late 80s, early 90s. Ruben, Judge Anderson can probably talk more about it and give more details because I wasn't there, but I've heard such great stories. But we have Brent on this panel, and the reason why, if you guys were at Capitol Day last year, and we had a panel talking about diversity in the workplace, and we also talked about brain drain in the state and how we can keep our best and brightest here, and how can we recruit and bring businesses to the state of Mississippi. And Brent Galloway got a round of applause at MEC's Capital Day in 2020. And when he said, in order for us to change the image of the state of Mississippi, we must start with the state flag. And so a year later, almost to the day, we have Brent Galloway here. Brent, I don't know about you, but when you said that, I had no idea it was going to happen in a year. And I think probably through this whole process with MEC and working on this behind the scenes, I think I talk to you more than I talk to anyone. He'll call me and he'll check on me and say, Kathy, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Are you okay? This is what's happening on this end. This is what I'm hearing. So Brent and I became closer, I think, through this whole process and had some great conversations about image and about what's happening around the country and what's happening in our state and what we need to do to make Mississippi what it could be and what it should be. So Brent, let's talk about last year and bring us back to where we are now here today.
Yeah, what a time, right?
I know.
It was. I think you and I talked about it. Kathy and I had talked about the flag a little bit, and she asked me to be on a panel, and so I made the comment last year at Capitol Day that to me that was a big deal for the image of the state of Mississippi, and it did draw a lot of applause. I did see a few wide eyes too. So, I think there are a lot of people who want to be somewhat measured and take time and go through it. It took a snowball rolling downhill to get this thing done. A pandemic that nobody's ever seen in our lifetime. Social unrest that once in a generation. It took the NCAA and the Mississippi Baptist Convention and a lot of other people, and certainly a lot of business and industry leaders and a lot of legislators, to put a lot of their credibility and stick their necks out a little bit to get it done. But what an accomplishment, and what a difference a year makes, really, right?
I know. And you talk about a lot of your friends. You're from Mississippi. You're from Columbus, Mississippi. your dad, we honored him. He was a great legend at MEC, and he was a board member as well. And you talked about you're from Mississippi, you moved away, got married, but you came back home, and a lot of your friends are still away, and you say they pick on you and say, hey, what's happening in the state of Mississippi? What are you guys doing? And you was like, Kathy, I need to talk about positivity in the state of Mississippi. So do you think things will change? Do you think we can bring people back here, or how do you think this flag, In God We Trust flag, is going to change the narrative of what people saw in Mississippi?
Right. Well, I think it changes our credibility. You know, we talk in the state about the things we're doing, how we're trying to be innovative, and how far we've come, and we're not the old, slow Mississippi that we used to be. But you bring people here to look at the state, and they see that old flag, and it just took all the credibility away. I mean, that it seems to me that a flag should be somewhat trivial, but it was not. It projected the image of the old Mississippi that was divisive and slow and backwards, and so for us to clear that hurdle, so to speak, and show people we're not that old Mississippi, I think is a huge benefit to our state, and huge for not only people in my generation, but like my children, generations to come, and trying to move Mississippi forward.
Well, thank you. And I say all the time, I don't think as Mississippians we tell our story enough. We don't share enough positivity out of the state because we have so much here to offer. The culture, the music, the food. You're one of the youngest legislators, and to have this on you and to see it happen during your time, what is that like, and the responsibility emotionally and everything?
Well, I would go back and talk about the day when we had the first conversation of changing the flag. A Republican colleague of mine came to me and asked, hey, if you guys are going to do anything about this flag, count me in, I want to help. And I sat on that for a day, 24 hours. And that Friday morning, I got some colleagues together, and we set up a meeting, which was to be held on the Monday, just after the Black Lives March in room 114. And in that room, you had a bipartisan group of individuals from all areas of the state of Mississippi working together, trying to hash out what type of bill we would file, if we would file a bill, and how would we go about securing votes for this new flag. And in that discussion, we all left the room with an objective. Everyone had a goal, everyone had something to do, individuals to contact, and it worked out. It was one of the most organized, unorganized events that I've ever been a part of. You had individuals that were, that you would think were not for changing the flag, that were secretly polling other individuals in their party. You had individuals working from the Mississippi Gulf Coast to the Mississippi Delta, talking to different individuals, crossing party lines, having discussions and conversations about the importance of changing the flag. And the night that I received a call that we had secured that one vote that we were missing, I was riding with a colleague, and we were just coming in, and I shed a tear, just a little, because it was like, okay, it's there, but I won't believe it until it happens. And when we secured the vote, and we came in, and the speaker introduced the bill, the ball started to roll. I mean, it was a group effort, honestly. It was individuals, like I said, across party lines. It wasn't just one person. As you stated, Henry Kirksey, Aaron Henry. I mean, the list goes on and on of those legislators, past and present, that have been fighting to change that flag. And it all came together. The George Floyd incident, the Black Lives Matter protests all over the nation. You had people in France, Germany, Turkey. I mean, you had countries marching, saying, Black Lives Matter. And it just rolled, the ball rolled, and it was time. It was not necessarily the perfect time, but it was time. And I'm just happy to be a part of it. And there are a number of individuals that should be sitting here as well, discussing this, because it wasn't just one person that did this. It was a number of individuals And I'm thankful for each and every one of them.
Well, I agree with you, and I wish we could get more in what we talked about when you're talking about moving forward, that we're going to tell these stories about Mississippi, and we're going to have more panels like that. You said it was the most organized, unorganized, and I think on the panel we talked about last year, I said how often we are more tactical than we are strategic, and I think this go around, you guys were strategic.
Well, I mean, it was a strategic plan. My desk mate, Shonda Yates, was emailing NCAA. You had individuals that were going to dinner and didn't know they were going in a focus group. You had individuals placing phone calls, as you said. So it was, and the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. And that was by design. And the design came to a glorious end. We were able to change the flag, and hopefully we can move forward and change some other things about the state of Mississippi. Negative connotations, negative statements about the state. We have a future to build upon now. We are now saying that we are open to the global economy. We're saying that we are open to diversity. We're saying that we are open to opportunities for our young adults who have decided to leave the state of Mississippi. You know, we always talk about the brain drain. Well, here's an opportunity to say, hey, look, we've changed the flag. We are moving on to other things to change for the positive. And hopefully, within the next couple of years, we'll see more momentum going.
Tell us about that, and when you knew that you're going to be on that commission, and you knew that's a responsibility because you guys, no one was happy with the commission.
It was overwhelming. You know, it was overwhelming because you knew. I will never forget the day that I got the call from the lieutenant governor, because it was his birthday, and I was like, "Why are you calling me on your birthday?" And he asked me, and I literally kind of just sat there for a moment in shock and was overwhelmed with just joy because I knew it was such a big deal, but I also knew the responsibility was huge, and all the commissioners. We took it very seriously. It was a process, and each of us that were appointed, it was great because talking about what you were saying, how the legislatures came together, everybody had different opinions, and we all liked different flags, and we all looked over 3,000 that were submitted, and we made a point that we wanted to look at every single one. And the MDAH did a great job. They set the gallery up. We were able to look at the flags and make our choices, and each of us had our own individual choices. And I think what it showed was that we wanted something that would represent all people of Mississippi. And maybe I liked one that had a different color, or maybe I liked one that was, you know, more blue or green or whatever the colors were. It didn't matter. It was a magnolia. We all, in the end, really agreed that that was something that we felt like everybody would look at it, and when they saw it, they would know it was Mississippi. You know, and that was something, you don't put a bunch of words on the flag. We have In God We Trust, because that was a part of the statute, but we learned a lot about vexillology, didn't we, Judge?
Sure did.
We didn't know much about flags and about what the process was to pick something, but they told us not a lot of colors, not a lot of words. There were so many things that we had to follow, but it really was amazing during the process that we all kind of said, okay, we had our opinions, we talked about all of our opinions, we disagreed, but we all came together in the end. And we flew the flags. That was kind of the coolest part of the process, I think. The 5 that were the last 5 that we picked, we brought them to the museum, to the Old Capitol Museum, and they flew them. And it changed our mind. I think once they flew on a flagpole, it was really neat to see that, because I thought about that flying over the Capitol on other buildings throughout the state. A friend of mine called from Mount Rushmore, and she was there. She's like, there's no Mississippi flag. Y'all get this flag. I said, we're working on it. It's coming. But, you know, just the fact that when people see that, it's going to be something that I think all Mississippians can be proud of. And I am so thrilled and honored. Like I said, it was an overwhelming responsibility. And I heard a lot of negative, just like, you know, a lot of people disagreed, and a lot of people had issues with it. But in the end, the people of Mississippi were ready for this. And I think we are so honored and blessed that the process we went through, everything we did, in the end came out with that 70%. And like you said, I was blown away, and I myself shed a few tears because we were so happy with the fact that people were really excited about what happened. And again, they may have liked different things, and they may have thought, oh, it should be this color or this color. But again, there's a lot of meaning in the flag, and a lot of people, when I shared that with them about the old Magnolia flag and the different things that we did, they loved the symbolism, and I think that's important.
I think we missed out on the mosquito, though.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know, how do you not let the mosquito be a part of the
I
flag?
know, it is a Mississippi. I had lots of people say, you didn't pick that.
Well, I was going to
loved
ask
it.
that. I was like, okay, you said everybody had their different and their favorite. And I was like, tell us, between us, just here on this panel, what happens here stays here. Did anybody have the mosquito as their? No,
I don't believe so. There were, like I said, there were a lot of different, and you know, the great thing in the end, as you know, the two that came down, which was the shield, the Great River flag, and then the magnolia, we heard from a lot of different people, but everybody, when we got to that and people started texting or calling or talking to us, they said, you know what? We are proud that we're at this point and we're going to support whatever it is. And I thought that said a lot for the people of Mississippi and all the different opinions that we all are very opinionated. We all have strong opinions, and that's why we're leaders and that's why we're involved in these processes. But we all came together and collaborated and said, you know what, this is what we want for our state. And it was a proud day, and I can't wait till it's all official.
You know, I didn't know there was so much about flags and flag poles. I did know all the intricacies about flags because, you know, I worked with Blake Wilson for so long, and Blake is so knowledgeable. So every day when we were doing the bicentennial flag, he explained to us the importance of symbols and numbers and how you could and you couldn't. So Blake Wilson, if you're listening, they missed the mark. They didn't have to get a vexillology. They could have called you because he knew everything there was to know about flags. I just wanted to say thank you to him, and I know there's so many others who want to say thank you to him as well. Judge Anderson, I'm going to go to you, but I was listening to a podcast and you were talking about how the magnolias are lining your yard, and I have magnolias in my yard, and I was like, no, I've never counted the magnolia trees in my yard. Let me count how many magnolia trees I have. So I don't have 10, but I have 6. To so many, if you can't remember anything, you know, you can remember the magnolia. And a lot of teachers were saying, oh, we want something easy for the kids to draw. And I was like, I think they can draw a magnolia.
And that was one of the things that actually they said, you want the flag to be easy enough for a child to draw. And I taught school, I taught 4th grade, and we taught Mississippi history. And so kids recognize that. They see the magnolia, and they know that it's our state flower. And they will tell their parents, because a lot of people don't know that. And so I think that is right. That's one of the big things. They said it needs to be simple. It needs to be something that children can draw in school.
Diversity in drawing the magnolia flower. I don't care how you draw that flower, you will know that's a magnolia. I don't care who draws it or how they draw it or the variation of white or, you know, the different types, that's a magnolia flower. And I was telling Chief Ben how proud I was that he was able to represent MEC on that commission. And we have Chief Ben on the line. What about this flag, this magnolia and this gold star and those bright colors?
In the creation of this new design for this flag, we want to incorporate culture and arts, and of those is the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians in our culture, that we cherish a lot of symbolism, that we incorporate stars and diamonds into our clothing, our beadwork, and our basketry. And of those, the star is one of them. In our language is Fichik, and also diamonds is Hamaya. And so what better way to incorporate that into a 5-point star that would recognize not only the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians, but other tribes that inhabited this land prior to statehood.
So, Judge Anderson, let's you know, your history with the flag from Ole Miss and just being a student there, and you talked about, you know, as a lawyer traveling around the state of Mississippi as a judge, and when you see the old flag, how it made you feel, and just being on boards, Fortune 500 boards, how, you know, that stopped a lot of businesses from coming in the state. So not only the emotional thing and the divide of making people feel like they weren't included, but just economics and the economy and just so much with this. Tell us about your time, if you can, like at Ole Miss, how you felt as a student there in law school and just traveling around the state as a lawyer, and now you're just enjoying the grandkids. Now, tell us about how this is for you.
Well, I've dealt with the flag for a long time. I went to Ole Miss in 1965, and I think every student on campus had a rebel flag. But I understand that, and it was a part of the culture. But I've been a lawyer for 53 years, and every courtroom I've ever walked into had a flag that kind of said to me I wasn't welcome, and especially being on the bench and looking over at a flag that was not welcome to me had a huge impact on me. But before I talk about anything, let me just say how much I want to thank MEC for what you have done over the years. There's no entity that has put as much time and energy into changing the flag as MEC has, and the business community. As you mentioned, I knew what damage the flag was doing to our state. I was on the board of 6 public companies, 3 Fortune 500 companies, and I can assure you that we might attract Nissan and Toyota and Continental Tire, but we ran away so many businesses, so many Fortune 500 companies, because they knew we were not a welcoming state. And if Louisiana and Georgia and Tennessee is not flying a rebel flag, and we are, we'd run a lot of businesses away. And that's going to change, and it'll change real soon. While I'm thinking about it, I need to mention that last year, Governor Winter passed, and there's no individual in Mississippi who worked longer and harder than Governor Winter to take down the flag. He was the greatest Mississippian that I ever knew, and we're going to miss him. At least he lived long enough to know that the flag was coming down. And I could name all of the other things that he accomplished in his lifetime, not only the flag, but the museums and embracing the history of Mississippi. He's just a great individual. And I would also say to you that I guess it was 20 years ago that I was chair of MEC when we attempted to change the flag, and it was ugly. You can ask Blake, your former boss, of the death threats that he received, and even Governor Winter traveling around the state, people harassed him and said negative things. So, but on November 3rd, that was a great day for us.
Well, thank you. You mentioned Governor Winter, and indeed, he was an icon, and he had a memory up until, almost the very end that his wife's name is Lisa, and my daughter's middle name is Elise, and I told Governor Winter that my daughter's 15, probably 10 years ago, and whenever I see him, he was like, "How's your daughter Elise?" And he remembers that, and he spoke to Leadership Mississippi, and he was so thorough, and he remembered everything, and he was so engaging, and you'll sit at the edge of your seat wondering what is he going to say next. And he cared about Mississippians. And when my grandmother said, "It's not about you, the blessing is helping others." I think somebody told him that too, because Governor Winter, he got it. And I just remember as a kid, I just remember Governor Winter, and I think so many will. And we can go on and on and on, and we could have another panel and talk about the things that he has done for the state and the things that he's done for MEC. And I think even when this time we were talking about the flag, he wanted to know, he was one, what can I do to help? Or he wanted to get pointers on it. And last year was tough on so many ways. And I hear people say, when I'm talking in DC, talking to counterparts in DC and other places, it's like, I just can't think of anything good that happened this year, but one more bad thing happened. I was like, well, in the state of Mississippi, I can name a few great things that has happened, in 2020. I can name some great things that happened in the country in 2020. I can name some things that happened to me personally in 2020, and we can talk forever about the horrible things that happened, but I think sometimes some things are out of our control, but I think we had control of this flag thing in this process, and I didn't know it then, but I think we did. So it was a tough time, and people really paid attention to the symbol, and a lot of people were concerned about, you're talking about inclusivity, but at the same time you're doing In God We Trust, and I was like, okay, come on now. Are we gonna find any and everything to make
it's like artwork. I told somebody, this was when I've been speaking on it and trying to encourage people, I said it's like artwork. We all put a different piece of art behind our fireplace. Nobody likes all the same art. And so a flag is a piece of art, and it's just a different one, and people can respect it and look at it, because we can admire art, but we may not like it, but we may look at it in a different way. And I think the flag, that's the great thing about this flag. We got a lot of national press talking about what you mentioned earlier. People from around the country have been watching us very, very closely. It was in the New York Times. It was in other papers. They were talking about Mississippi. And for once, it was a real positive thing. It wasn't the negative stuff. It was like, look at what Mississippi is doing. And it, like you said, in a time where there's a lot of unrest and a lot of bad and negative press, Mississippi was like in the forefront. And that's what we kept telling people. I'm like, you know what? This is something that will go down in history, and it's an honor to be a part of it. But I think that other parts of the country really looked at Mississippi in a very positive way, and they know that we have a new flag.
Right.
And when a part of it, Scott was like, so Kathy, what do you think before we went, before the vote in November, and we were strategizing on where we wanted to put billboards, where we wanted to put signs. And I said, I just want to rent a van and take a road trip around the state of Mississippi and go talk to the aunties that's sitting on the porch across the state and the uncles that never had the opportunity to hang a flag that they were proud of. And he said, go for it and get some video. And I was like, sure, I'll do that. And so I went to the Delta, I went to South Mississippi. I went everywhere and I wore my mask. And everywhere I went, I don't care, color, age, it was like, I like that mask. I got stopped. And they said, do you have a mask like that? Or do you have another flag? So I went to Walmart, got all the flagpoles I wanted, but I didn't get the flagpoles that didn't wrap. And I was like, look, we're gonna get just regular flagpoles. And I was able to travel around the state of Mississippi and hand out flags and hand out flagpoles. And I had a little ladder, and I climbed up the ladder, and I hung those flags. When they was like, well, baby, I don't have a place I can hang it. Can I just stick it here? And I said, you can put it wherever you want to. And so I had a great time, and hopefully we can get some footage and share just me traveling around the state and talking to people and telling me what it meant to them to have something that we can all be proud of, a symbol that we can all be proud of. I want to hear, when you saw that vote in November and I was sitting in my house, or even the vote in June, because I had called saying, people, are you coming to the Capitol? People texting, say, Kathy, are you going to the Capitol? I was like, no, I was in my garden, because I just was listening from my phone. And, the night of, are you going to come to a watch party? And I said, no, I just want to be at my house. I want to be here by myself. And I remember those times. So we're going to go around and just tell us, do you remember what you were doing when it passed in June? And then again, on election night, November 3rd, when you saw those numbers go across that we had a new Mississippi state flag. Do you remember what you were doing and how you felt?
Yeah, I do remember where I was and what I was thinking. And yeah, I remember thinking, Judge Anderson mentioned it, we talked about this, and I thought changing the flag was just the right thing to do. But from perspective of Mississippi Economic Council, what does it do to help attract jobs and industry and recruit employers to the state? And it made me think about, these are jobs that we're trying to get, that I want my son to have one day, that I want people to come back to Mississippi to have. These are jobs we should be proud of. This is a state we should be proud of. So it made me proud. We get to celebrate it. We get to be the ones who take the old flag down and put the new flag up. But on the shoulders of giants do we stand to be able to do it. So I really want to thank those people who have put a lot into this over years. A lot of people who put their credibility out there when it was not politically advantageous for them to do so. So I want to thank all those people. It's a great day for Mississippi.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Representative Bell?
Well, of course, I know what I was doing in June. I pressed that green button to vote yes to change the flag. And afterwards, in the House chamber, I'm not going to lie, I broke down, I cried, because I never thought in my lifetime that I would see that flag disappear. As Judge Anderson said earlier, that flag has never represented Chris Bell. It's never represented my community. And it has done detrimental damage not only to the state but to the African American community, and not just in Mississippi. That flag stood for segregation. It stood for divisiveness. It stood for everything that is bad in this country. And to be able to be in the position to change the direction of the state, never thought I'd be there. I never thought that this state would change that flag. And to see those men and women on the opposite side of the aisle from me stand up and take a hit, you know, I applaud those guys because they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to take the sacrifice to do that. One of the members came to me and said, hey, I may go home after this vote, but I'm doing it for my children. I'm doing it for the future of Mississippi. And I respect him for that. And I thank him for that. And I just hope, as Judge Anderson said earlier, that we attract more companies here, that we attract more students to come back to Mississippi, that each and every one of our colleges and universities grow as a result of the change. I know it's going to take time, but I foresee it happening soon. And I'm just going to keep pressing forward. Look, I'm from Chicago. I love my city, and I love my Chicago Bears. I know it's something different, but my grandfather always told me about the Green Bay Packers and this student body right that the Packers would run whenever they played Chicago or any other NFL team. And he told me that as this is what you need to do. Even though the opposition know you're coming, you need to let them know that whatever that you're doing in life, that you're going to come full steam ahead, and you're not going to stop at one moment. And that's what this state needs to do. We need to keep moving full steam ahead. We need to do a student body right and move over the opposition and move for a brighter and bigger Mississippi.
I agree. Thank you. And I was on a Zoom call with some Leadership Mississippi alums, and they wanted to talk about brain drain. And I had a younger member in the program say, Kathy, what do we do? We feel like we're trying to do so much, and the door is getting shut in our face, and so many people are tired and they're just moving away. Do you have any advice? And I said, Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's okay to get tired. We all get tired, but it's not okay to quit. And so I hope she's listening to this and watching this, because that's some great advice that your grandfather gave you. We get tired, and if you don't get tired, you're not human, and I think we're all human. But you can't stop. You have to keep pushing forward, and that's huge. And another thing, Brent, you was talking about brain drain, and we were talking on this call, and they were saying, okay, let's, instead of saying why are they leaving, let's talk to these individuals that's 25 to 28 or 23 to 26 and say, why are you staying? And let's use that to say, because there are some people staying, and say, why are you staying? And use that to bring people back, because there are some people that's staying, and like you and I, we knew that we wanted to raise our families here. So we came back. And so you mentioned that in one of our board meetings. How about we talk about the people that we can bring back? We all tell our kids, it's okay to move away and to learn and explore, because we all do it, but this is always home. And so, yes, we want to keep our best and brightest here, but for those that leave, to learn more and to bring back more here, we're open for business. Yes. So let's move. So tell me, where were you?
Well, I was in June. I remember I was just working. I was still with the Secretary of State's office, so obviously paying attention to what was going on. And I had lots of friends that were in the legislature, and I knew the pressure that y'all were under. And I just appreciate your efforts and what you all did, a representative and all the others, because I know that it was something that they spoke about very passionately. I watched a lot of the people on the floor and them sharing their heart and their feeling, and I think that in the end is what made a difference. It's the way that people felt and the way they felt about their children and what that future was all about. And I have two boys, and they were so excited about this process, and it meant so much to them and their friends. And I realized then that I had been grown up in Mississippi. I had moved to D.C. and moved back for the same reason. I wanted to raise my children in Mississippi, because this was home. but we have to tell our story. We have to be the ones that share that narrative and write the positive things for our families and for our future, because other people can believe all you want. I grew up on the coast and was born in the Delta, but after Katrina, there were hundreds of people that came to help. Those people, a lot of those people moved to Mississippi because of the people that they connected with. So we have such just a lot to offer for people. And when November, I was at home at my house, I might have been having a glass of red wine, and I was just in awe of what the numbers were coming back, and I just could not believe that we were able, like I said, I thought 55%, I felt good about it, but I just wasn't sure that people were going to get out and vote, and then obviously the numbers were great. And again, I just thank everybody, MEC, the business community, all the commissioners that we worked with. It was just a process for people saying that we're ready for this, and we're so happy for Mississippi. So again, thank you for all y'all have done and for having the panel today.
Thank you. And before, Judge Anderson, before, not to put any pressure on you, but we're going to let you close us out. But before, we're going to hear from Chief Ben and say, okay, Chief, where were you? Because, 11,000 people, you have a population of 11,000 in Philadelphia, a huge impact, contributor to the economy in Mississippi. And so I know you were the youngest chief ever of the Mississippi Band, so we want to hear from you telling us, where were you, how did you feel, and what was going on with you?
Well, with any election, there's always that great anticipation of what the polling numbers will start rolling out to be. And as the evening rolled, and to see the numbers steadily grow in support of the flag was already just a buildup. And then, to get the final numbers released was a great joy, and then you start reflecting back, because at the beginning of the work by the commission, there's some thoughts that go through your mind of, how will this go? How will this be accepted by the people? And to have such great response and support by the people, it's such a great feeling, not only for ourselves, but to me as a commission, and to be a representative again of MEC, and also to be appointed by the governor. I think that we work very well, and that's the sign and symbolism of what we do is we work together and what great things we can achieve. And I look forward for the things that we not only achieve here at the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians, but through economic progress throughout the state and to the state government that we have here at the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians.
At that moment, I was so proud to be an employee of MEC because our board members were 100% in agreement. When we did the ad and we signed their names, and they did it, and they were proud because they knew that they needed a change. And I just want to, take this moment to tell the board, the MEC board, the executive board, the board of governors, our members, thank you for being so supportive of us and helping us push it, because you stood behind Scott and the staff and I to make this happen, and you had our backs from day one. Anthony Wilson with Mississippi Power, and we've been talking about this for a long time, and I wish we can put everybody on a panel, because you may hear from Anthony a little bit later, you heard it earlier, and tell us, where were you? Because I know you were doing a lot on the coast to make this happen, and so we're excited about that. And Judge Anderson, we're gonna close this out, but can you just tell us, for you and the life that you lived, and Governor Winter, we were so happy that he was able to see this happen, and just close us out in what this meant for the state of Mississippi. And our, you have, your grandsons here, and just for generations to come. What does this mean? How does this look on the outside looking in, you think, for those that's on your board with you on these companies?
I spent my whole career talking about how great Mississippi is. We don't have mountains, but we've got everything else. We've got the most talented people. We've got the greatest climate. We've got rivers. We've got beaches. Oil and gas, timber. We don't have anything lacking here. But one thing that was lacking for so long was leadership. And believe it or not, in 2020, we saw leadership. It took political courage for the lieutenant governor, the speaker, and for the House to stand up and decide to make Mississippi a better place for everybody. That had never happened before in my lifetime. And I can assure you that Mississippi will be a different place going forward. We will compete with anybody for industry, and we will keep our young people here. My grandson is in Nashville, and I'm gonna figure a way to get him back here. But 2020 was a great year for me and for Mississippi.
Well, thank you. And look, we're going to help. Let us know what we can do to get them back here. I mean, you don't want to be in Nashville. I mean, we have the brightest here. We have so much to offer. I mean, look at this panel. Look at this panel. And it's a good-looking panel, too, I must add. So we're excited to be here in 2021. There's so much. We're looking forward to so much, and we're gonna highlight. Stay tuned for that soundtrack of Mississippi. And I hope you enjoyed the panel today. I hope you're enjoying your day, and we're looking forward to working with you for a better and brighter Mississippi in 2021. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Today, a good connection is more important than ever, and fast, clear communication is essential for your business, and that's what TEC is here to provide. That means a reliable internet connection, secure networking, and crystal clear phone calls for businesses of any size. The business landscape is changing fast, and our dedicated team is here to help you connect and adapt. Visit TEC.com today and let us make your connection to the world.
It's the sizzle in your bacon, the comfort in your cozy socks, the heat that can't be beat. With natural gas, saving money just feels natural. Atmos Energy, your natural gas company.
Since 2016, transportation funding has been a priority, as Mississippi roads and bridges are one of our greatest assets. Our next speaker, Representative Charles Busby, has been at the forefront of this effort. As chairman of the House Transportation Committee, he has played a major role in the 2018 special session legislation that will repair or replace more than 160 bridges through the Emergency Road and Bridge Fund. And we saw an additional $80 million provided to transportation last year through the state lottery. We thank him for his continued effort and attention to improving our state's infrastructure. An engineer and business owner, Chairman Busby represents Jackson County. Please welcome Representative Charles Busby.
Well, thank you, Jason, and thanks to MEC for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm very proud of the efforts that have been made for our roads and bridges over the past couple of years. I want to acknowledge the efforts of Governor Bryant and House Ways and Means Chairman Trey Lamar, who helped with a number of these issues. The creative process, the thought process that they put into it has been very beneficial. When utilizing the use tax for local roads and bridges, helping our municipalities and our counties. We're fully funding the local system bridge program, which we did last year through the use tax, and for the emergency road and bridge program, where we spent over $163 million thus far on repairing or replacing bridges throughout the state. The vast majority of those dollars are spent at the local level. Mississippi has garnered national attention for the way it's addressed its road and bridge program. The American Society of Civil Engineers will be coming out very quickly, very soon, with their infrastructure report card for the nation, highlighting Mississippi and the way that we have addressed these issues. As we work towards issues going forward in the future, I still think that it's a good idea that we move away from the income tax model that we have in the state of Mississippi and more to a consumption tax. I will file a bill again this year that would raise the fuel tax by 8 cents over the next 4 years and the diesel tax by 12 cents over the next 4 years, while eliminating the 4% income tax over that same period of time. It's an initiative that I've been pushing for the last few years, and I hopefully see it get some progress this year. With COVID and the threat that it provides here in the legislature, I think we should all be very discerning. All of our chairmen need to be very discerning about the bills that they bring forward. Each individual member of the House and Senate needs to be discerning about the bills that they bring forward so that we can complete our work here and as quickly as possible and get back to our families and reduce the threat of spreading the virus here within the legislature. So thank you for having me today, and I appreciate the work that's been done here in Mississippi over the past several years, and I look forward to continuing to work for Mississippi to improve our roads and bridges.
As we continue to focus on improving our transportation system, understanding the needs is an important step. Senator Jennifer Brannon was named chair of the Senate Highways and Transportation Committee in November. Since that time, she has already held a 2-day hearing to explore what needs exist and began identifying possible solutions. One of MEC's top priorities is improving our roads and bridges. Nonetheless, we appreciate her efforts and look forward to working with her. An attorney, Chairwoman Brannon represents Leake, Neshoba, and Winston counties respectively. Please welcome Senator Brannon.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to address you at the annual MEC Capital Day. It looks a little different this year, but if there's anything that we have learned over the last year, it's how to be flexible and continue to work and serve despite various circumstances. First, I'll give you a general overview of what can be expected this session, none of which will be a surprise to any of those of you viewing today. The Medicaid Tech Bill will be among items on our agenda, as well as redistricting, phasing out of income tax, and as always, the budget will be among those main topics of discussion. And I'm very supportive of efforts to phase out income tax. I think moving our tax structure to more of a user-based system is a wise move from an economic standpoint, but we must do so in a way and at a time that makes sense. We all understand that COVID has presented not only health challenges, but fiscal challenges to our state. And I'm glad that we were in a good fiscal position at the start of the virus, so that has certainly helped to curb the blow. But we must still be watching, and we will be watching our revenue projections and other economic indicators in an effort to make good decisions going forward for our state. And moving on specifically to the Transportation Committee, I'm excited to be serving as chair of the Senate Highways and Transportation Committee this year, and I look forward to working with other leaders across the state to continue addressing issues facing our state's infrastructure system. First, I'd like to recap the work of the legislature over the last couple of years when it comes to our transportation system. I think it is important and it will give us the proper perspective going forward. First of all, the lottery. From the 2018 special session, the lottery provides for up to $80 million annually to be deposited into the State Highway Fund, dedicated towards state highway maintenance, repair, and in some circumstances, federal match money. For the lottery's first year, it has netted the state a little over $70 million. Then we have the use tax diversion that was also a result of the 2018 special session, and it came about, as you know, from the South Dakota versus Wayfair case. that was handed down by the United States Supreme Court in the early summer of 2018. It provides for 35% of use tax revenue to be diverted to cities and counties, 5% of that going to the local system bridge program. In its inception, it was expected to generate about $120 million a year over a 4-year phase-in period once it's fully phased in. Right now we're in the second year, we're at the 50% mark. It'll be fully implemented in 2023. But in its inception, it was expected to generate $120 million a year. To date, there's been $56 million in collections from use tax revenue. Then the BP settlement, this is a total of $750 million that we're talking about, $40 million annually for 15 years, and this is for infrastructure projects in our cities and counties. Then we've got the Emergency Road and Bridge Repair Fund Program. This legislation was established as a mechanism to begin addressing critical infrastructure needs all around our state. And as you know, there was $250 million in bonds that were authorized as the initial funding source for this program. 250 have been funded, 250 million, and we had a total of $970 million of requests, so there's still lots of needs out there. Local governments received about $213 million of the $250 million, which is about 85% of the total projects awarded. So as you can see, significant monies have been dedicated to the Mississippi transportation system over the last couple of years, which is definitely a step in the right direction for the maintenance and preservation of our transportation system. And it's a step in the right direction for economic development as well. But many discussions are going forward about the next step and long-term goals for this area of our state. I'm deeply involved in various discussions right now and am conducting research on a couple of items. More details on that later. But you will see us taking a hard look at making sure the monies going into transportation are being used in the intended manner, that the administration side is being run as efficiently as possible, and there's less red tape to deal with to get these projects up and running. It's important that we have appropriate checks and systems in place to maximize the use of taxpayer dollars. You should hear more about this as the session progresses. From an appropriations standpoint, there's still so many unknowns. In fact, we may not even have a true sense of the financial impact of COVID on our state's economy until possibly next year. For that reason, we will continue to carefully monitor revenues and other financial indicators as we consider new policy, not only for transportation, but for all other areas of our state. And I thank you for your time and attention. I look forward to seeing all of you here at the Capitol.
We appreciate the hard work of our elected leaders in moving Mississippi forward. We work in partnership with them to help achieve that goal. And when storms strike, our employees work tirelessly to restore power. We are the electric cooperatives of Mississippi.
Mississippi Power uses the most advanced technologies to offer energy solutions that make our customers' lives easier every day. We're partnering with Southern Company to build the first ever smart neighborhood, fully powered by state-of-the-art solar shingles. The homes will also feature battery storage, electric vehicle chargers, and smart home automation. At Mississippi Power, we shine a light on our communities.
not happy to welcome to Capitol Day Speaker of the House, Philip Gunn. As you all know, this is the Speaker's third term, and during that time he has really focused on a lot of key issues that really are going to help move the business community forward. Going all the way back to early in his tenure when he focused on workers' comp reform, teacher pay raises, all of these things that are going to put the platform and foundation in place for us to succeed. But this past session stands out because one of the things that I know is that the Speaker really wants to focus on improving Mississippi's image and keeping our best and our brightest here. Through his Commission on Public Policy, he's focused on brain drain, workforce development, and all of these things that are so important to us here at MEC. But more importantly, it was his stand and his commitment to focus on retiring our state flag that has made such a difference in putting us in a position to really begin to improve Mississippi's image and create the type of business environment that's really going to help us grow and become more competitive. Please help me welcome Speaker Gunn.
Well, thank you, Scott, and good morning, everyone. I'm sorry we can't be together in person. I know we always have a MEC Day at the Capitol, and it's always a pleasure to see each of you here as we gather in this room, and it's always an exciting time. I do appreciate Scott's willingness to understand the sensitivity that we have going on in the Capitol right now with the pandemic. Appreciate your understanding of that as well. We have been very sensitive to that. I will tell you that we feel like what we do up here is very important to the people of the state of Mississippi, and the work needs to go on. So we are not planning to suspend the session. We are planning to push forward. There are things that need to be done. The legislature is going to convene January 5th, and we're going to push forward, and we're going to take care of the work that is so important to the people of the state of Mississippi. But having said that, we also recognize that we probably have to be safe and do some things out of the ordinary. And that's why we're doing this by film. As you know, we have many groups who come to the Capitol this time of the year. MEC Day, the realtors come, the supervisors, the municipal league, and others. And so what the Lieutenant Governor and I have talked about is trying to be very aware of the pandemic and be safe, but at the same time push forward with the work that has been done. In the House of Representatives, we have suspended our PAGE program for the year. You know, we normally bring in high schoolers and teenagers who come and serve as pages. We have suspended that for the year. We have discouraged tour groups from coming. We have discouraged these type of days because we want to, as much as possible, be safe. In the House, we plan to encourage the wearing of masks. We plan to encourage social distancing, and I'm going to encourage my members to get in, get the work done, and get out. So we appreciate your flexibility and understanding this. It's maybe the first time since I've been elected that we've not been able to gather at MEC Day. So I hate that that's the case, but I'm sure that we will be able to gather together sometime in the future. I've been asked to give you sort of a projection of what I see happening in the House this coming year. I will tell you, one of the first things we plan to do on the first day is to pass the statute affirming the new state flag. Very pleased with the vote that occurred in November. I know that almost 3/4 of the people of this state voted in favor of the new flag. That's a strong vote, and it's a strong signal as to where the people of this state want to go. And so we plan to take that up in short order on the first day and hopefully get that put into statute so that it will be there for years to come. I will also like to commend MEC and their role in that. MEC has been an active player in helping us bring forward a new state image and a new state flag. I've had numerous meetings with Scott and some of your leadership over the last 3 or 4 years, trying to find a way that we could do this in a dignified way, but also put forward an image that is positive for Mississippi, and I feel like we have accomplished that. So I look forward to passing that statute on the first day. Another thing that I want to talk about very briefly is the budget. Now, I have said this in previous speeches, and I'm going to say it again. I believe Mississippi was in the best financial shape we've ever been in prior to the pandemic. I think that's a result of good conservative decisions that we've made over the last 9 years. I think it's a result of the fact that we've lived within our means. We've been very conscious not to spend more money than we have. And sometimes those decisions were tough 2016, comes to mind, where we had to make some cuts because the money that we expected to have just wasn't there. And rather than overspend, we were conservative and we stayed within our means. And because of that, prior to the pandemic, we had filled the rainy day fund. We had funded all state agencies. We had enough money to fix the retirement system, which was not a result of any decisions the legislature had made. It just, the system had gotten into a point of deficiency, and we were able to fill that. And we had $200 million in the bank. So we were in the best financial shape the state's ever been in prior to the pandemic. Now, in April and May, that $200 million was wiped out. But because we were in such great financial shape, we were able to weather that storm. Now, when the fiscal year started on July 1, we have seen an uptick in revenues, and the economy looks pretty good. Now, we still have to be very careful and cautious. We received an infusion of federal dollars last year through the CARES Act and other resources that may not be here this year. So I've been very, very quick to caution the Joint Legislative Budget Committee and my leadership in the House by saying, look, we've got to be careful with our budgeting. We cannot assume that the revenues are going to continue to stay at these all-time highs, and that we may not have the assistance of the federal government in this year ahead as well. So we're still going to be conservative with our budgeting. We're going to bring forward a solid budget. The Joint Legislative Budget Committee met in December, and we put forward a very conservative, reasonable budget, and we're going to work from that. And as you know, the budget's normally done at the end of March when we have the most information possible, so we'll see how that goes. Another thing I want to touch on very briefly is income tax. There's been a lot of talk about that. I will tell you that we've been looking at that for about 4 years now. Many of you may be aware or may remember about 4 years ago, we held a number of hearings in this very room, in fact, and brought in some tax experts from around the country where we talked about just basic tax policy. What's good taxes, what's bad taxes, how do we want to restructure our tax program or tax policies here in Mississippi. So we're going to continue to look at that. There's been a lot of talk about that lately, and I personally would like to find a way to eliminate the income tax in our state. I think that works to the benefit of our citizens. We're going to be studying a variety of ways to do that. So that's one thing that may come forward this year. And then finally, I want to touch on workforce development. Scott mentioned that very briefly in his introduction. That is something that we have partnered with MEC to focus on in the last few years. Many of you may recall about 1.5 years ago, I held a summit on workforce development and brain drain, where we brought in national experts to talk about what do we need to do to better educate and better train our workforce in our state, and to try to retain not only our best and brightest, but to attract the best and brightest from other states to come to Mississippi. So we held 2 summits. One was on workforce development, one was on brain drain. Many of you participated in that. I thought they were very successful, and we produced a couple of bills last year that I think were House Bill 1387 and House Bill 1556, both of which passed the House and the Senate. Unfortunately, they were vetoed by the governor. We are planning to come forward with those bills again here this year, and would love to have MEC support once again for both pieces of legislation. So that's just kind of a brief overview, I think, of some of the things that are on tap for this coming session. Again, it is always a pleasure to work in conjunction with MEC to accomplish the things that we do here at the Capitol. I look forward to hearing from many of you, and hopefully we'll be able to see you soon once this pandemic gets behind us. Thank you so much for letting me speak to you here today.
The best innovations come from families. And our family isn't any different. We provide state-of-the-art fiber technology with local experts in local offices. That means competitive prices for high-speed internet in places never before possible. All from a family-owned business you've trusted for centuries. TEC. Your neighborhood's our fast fiber internet.
Welcome back to MEC's Capital Day. Our next guest is Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. Delbert is in his second year as Lieutenant Governor, but it's really a long history of helping the business community that sets him apart. When he was Secretary of State, he focused on things like improving the ability to have headquarters established here in Mississippi, to encourage companies to make private investment into research and development within our universities. And in his first year as Lieutenant Governor, he continued to carry on that tradition by using CARES dollars to make sure that small businesses had the opportunity to continue to have the support they needed to be successful. He worked very hard to make sure our State Workforce Investment Board was realigned to allow for the creation of an Office of Workforce Development, a longtime priority of MEC. And of course, without his help, our Business Protections Liability Bill would have never happened. So please welcome Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann.
Thank you. Thank you, and I'll leave my mask off as well. Thank you. I appreciate those kind comments. We have enjoyed a very good relationship with y'all and with the business community from which I came. We basically ran a business like everybody else did before y'all hired me to be Secretary of State and now Lieutenant Governor. And to echo a little bit of what was said, we had a very successful year last year. And that year included the CARES Act money and other things that we did. And basically we gave every child in Mississippi an iPad or a Chromebook, 400,000 of them. We devoted $300 million to small businesses to get them up and continue to run as they went forward. Thank goodness we allocated $10 million to build ICU beds and negative pressure rooms, and we have 32 new ICU rooms that are now fully utilized and almost 400 negative pressure rooms that Mississippians are using today. So we allocated a number of different efforts across Mississippi to make sure that we had that money well spent, including the liability protection that we just discussed, PPE and others, helping our cities and our counties. All of that is behind us, and I was so proud of the legislature this year and the work we did. It's very long, the longest in history. Now we look towards the future, and that future involves you. And so I want to talk today about where we're going with economic development. You will see us release here next week a new program for economic development in Mississippi. It will be called MFLEX, and I have the statute right here. This is what will be filed by Senator Harkins. It's quite a lengthy bill, and it took a lot of time and a lot of effort from our economic developers, our business communities, the MEC, everyone worked really hard on this, and our goals were, first, we want to be as competitive or more competitive with every other southern state. We start with that. Then the second thing is it needed to be simple and understandable so that people could, yes, actually do this at their home office or where their business was and brought into here. And the third thing that was really important to me is that it emphasized small and medium-sized businesses. Large businesses are great. We welcome our Toyotas of the world and all of the Nissans and others that have been so good to us. But the future economic engine for Mississippi is in small business. So you'll see the MFLEX program come in, and let me give you a couple of the things that will be done. We're going to eliminate some of the tax breaks in Mississippi that are adverse to us economically and not used. We ought to clean up the house some to get started, and that'll be part of the legislation. In addition to that, we will start a process where you can compute from your own home, either to use the current jobs tax credit, for example, or the new MFLEX credit. The MFLEX credit will be 1.5% on all manufacturing products that you bring in here, 7% on non-manufactured products that are established by this business, 2% for buildings and repair work, a 2% credit on buildings and repair. You also get 15% on all of the average workforce for full-time employees that are brought here. Of course, we require that they have health insurance when they provide this. If in fact your average wage base is more than 110% of the county average, you create up another 30% of that, of your employees' wages over that period of time, over the 1 year period of time. And in effect, if you hire 25 employees and you're over 125%, you get 30% of that amount as a credit. Now, the reason that's so important, the last part really is aimed at our high-tech industries, bringing high-tech to Mississippi. So a simple program, that they can easily compute, or they can use some of the old tax credits, and that's what the MFLEX program will have. The other thing that it has, I think, is also critical to you and to me, is the fact that it has annual reporting of what those dollars were spent on. And the dollars are given retroactive, so you apply at the end of the year for your credit. That's also critical so that we know we don't waste any money in Mississippi. It's hard enough now. We've had budget cuts. We've had to struggle with our budget here in the state. The pandemic has just been horrendous to us. And with all of that, we need to make sure everything is accountable. This program does that. Very pleased with the economic developers, very pleased with the programs that they have offered, pleased with what we have done to make it even better, I think, and aim it at small businesses and have the annual reporting requirements. On the education front, the future of Mississippi is in education. We will be pushing again for a teacher pay raise. In addition to that, over 17,000 hours came from these dual credit and dual enrollment processes. You see those proliferating around Mississippi where they're actually getting college credits either toward a technical job or a college degree. Only 25% of Mississippians actually get a college degree. Those other 75% need a technical skill that will give them the economic advantages that we want for every citizen in Mississippi. You will see us push that dual credit and dual enrollment. We have work to do to make sure that that's given in every school in Mississippi, and there are a number of them. You can go to Clinton or Gulfport. You can go to many of our places in Mississippi, Vicksburg, and others that have these kind of dual credit enrollments. Those need to proliferate, and we're going to encourage them to proliferate this year. We want to consolidate some of our government agencies and start the process of making sure that your agency stays in its own silo and does its own work to the best of its own ability. For that, I'd like to see the tourism, for example, spun off from MDA and start as a separate agency, the head appointed by the governor. That's important. It's for the fourth largest income producer we got in Mississippi. And they're also getting allocations of funds to go ahead and brand Mississippi. This next year, while we have this opportunity, I want to rebrand Mississippi as with this new business tax incentives, our new flag that you voted for this past year, our new ideas in Mississippi on how to progress, and we want to be competitive in the business area. You'll see us start to brand Mississippi shortly with that, and I think a new tourism department will be very efficient to that. On our corrections, you'll see a new correction bill, and you'll see us trying to go ahead and educate those prisoners so that when they come out, they don't come back. They come out with a skill. We've done that with driver's license to allow them to get to work, and you'll see other opportunities. I'd ask you to take a look at giving someone a second chance if they come out with a technical skill that can be beneficial to you. Lastly, you'll see us expanding a further broadband. We expanded it last year, a total of $150 million of broadband. This year, you'll see us expanding it as well. The federal government is also giving us a program. Everyone needs to be connected for everyone to be successful. It's going to be a really good year in Mississippi. It's going to be a really good year in the legislature. And I'm so looking forward to working with MEC and all of our businesses to make sure that happens.
Well, we've made it to the end of our Capital Day. We appreciate you being with us. We appreciate you being a part of it. But it's really important to look back and think about some of the things we've heard today. Again, understanding the value of education and why it's so important for us to really focus on that because it has such a major part in workforce development. Secondly, making sure our transportation system is strong and vital to where we are moving our economy as a result of having that transportation system that is considered to be in good shape and really able to serve the needs of our businesses. And then finally, of course, we want to talk about economic development. As you heard mentioned today, there's a plan in place to really change the way economic development and incentives are done. And this is going to put Mississippi at the forefront of having a program that makes it simple and easy for businesses to choose which is best for them. As we go into this session, MEC is going to continue to focus on workforce development. It has been our priority for the past couple of years to continue funding Work Keys, ACD Work Keys, which is an assessment of a child's work readiness in high school. Our goal is to fund it so that every high school student across the state of Mississippi has the opportunity to take this assessment to see exactly where he is in his work readiness. We also are going to continue to work with our transportation chairs to find additional dollars to put into our road and bridge system to address the needs that we have. Y'all may recall that in 2015, MEC, through Blueprint Mississippi, worked very diligently in an effort to fund additional dollars for transportation. And what we did is we were able to get over $200 million annually through the special session that was held in 2018. So going forward, we understand we still need more. So we want to find a solution, a way to make that happen. And then finally, we want to make sure that as we look at our tax structure in this state, that we're doing it in a very holistic manner to allow us to understand what it means to make changes. And I think that's one of the things that really excites me, is that we have the opportunity to begin to address our needs in this state by really being very diligent on the impacts of what we do. So again, our day today has been a lot of fun. I really hate that you weren't able to be with us here live at the Capitol like we normally are. It's our hope that we'll be able to get together in person very soon at some event across the state, or either here in Jackson. But until then, we're going to continue to provide you, our members, information that's important about Mississippi's economy in making our state stronger. And it's your support that allows that to happen. So again, thank you for being a part of the day, and we look forward to seeing you very soon.